too. So I just clicked live. It's going to take a couple of minutes. How you been?
On the path, on the journey, brother.
So where do you live? You're in Missouri, is that right?
No, no, no. I'm in. I've been between here and between Georgia and also Arizona.
Oh, Arizona.
Yeah, Sedona. I've been out. I've been back and forth quite a bit all year,
Oh yeah.
continuing to do the inner work.
So you're in Georgia,
Yes, North Georgia,
North
under
Georgia.
5 inches of snow.
Are you near Blairsville?
That's actually where my dad lives. That is
Is it?
about an hour and a half from me. I'm an hour north of Atlanta, in a place called
Oh,
Gainesville.
oh, you're in
Gainesville.
Gainesville.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. So, and you've been spending a lot of time in Sedona, and if I remember correctly, you're a coach. Are you a coach?
Yeah, well, yes, a former coach. I'm not coaching anymore.
Yeah, you were a former coach, and
Mhm.
we got 19 people, and we'll give it another minute,
Yeah.
but because I don't want to get in too deep. But I remember that, and so the way we met, and people can see this on the replay if they're not on it, but you came to the Soulogy Fest, and you had quite a story, if I remember correctly, and I cannot mostly remember things, like energetically, but you had quite a story, if I remember, uh, not only in regard to your own transformation and awakening, but also in your somehow. I remember there was something about how you came into Soulogy period, which I think, if I remember correctly, wasn't too long before the Soulogy Fest. So I guess we could start there. Because at Soulogy Fest, we had some times where people would come up and kind of
Yes.
test. Yeah. And you came up and really, I've got this on video. I still haven't done
Mhm.
the editing I want to do, maybe put something together with it. But you gave a great testimony. It was riveting. But yeah, how did you? Wasn't there something like you had just discovered Soulogy or something, and you came to Soulogy Fest kind of not on a whim, but just kind of like in the flow of something? I don't remember all the details.
Yeah. So how all that got started was I had been struggling with a relationship that maybe we'll get into here as far as how this whole thing works out on the nonverbal. This is I kind of reached out to Morgan and a couple of her latest posts. I just was so really inspired by that because that's something that I experienced and I've heard you speak about it at length about being completely separate from somebody.
Mm,
And so I
mm,
had been separated by somebody or from somebody who I was in a relationship with that we had had a very strong connection and a lot of what we did, she at the time had lived in Florida, I lived in Georgia, and we just really connected. And we connected like in the midst of COVID, so there was no contact initially. So by the time we actually came together, we actually did what we called a virtual date. And when the virtual date finally happened, we got off the phone just as we were getting off the phone. At that moment in time, it'd been about 2 months into our communications, which were just very in depth, and we had this real deep connection on a spiritual level. You know, both growing, and as she used to say, I'm a person who's constantly expanding, and and that was something that just really inspired her. But what really came out of that was that by the time that we actually physically met, we already knew that we loved each other before we met.
wow.
It didn't take our bodies. Our bodies basically were the last things to fall in love,
Wow.
and that was the thing that was the most powerful because along those lines, including intimacy, that was like the very last thing to come into it. But prior to that, all that connection was already made, and it was known, and there was no questions whatsoever. But
Wow.
and this is during that period of time that I really realized. I'll tie it in real quick about how I came to this whole situation. But I into our relationship about in June of 2020. Um, she had shown me some different things on energetics as far as the things like Ho'oponopono, which a lot of people are aware of. And a lot of this was new to me because she kind of came from a Buddhist background, and I was a seeker doing all kinds of things, seeking the spiritual, the etheric nature of life, and it was something that I knew was opening up for me. So when we finally came to this place, I was meditating one day, and I talked to her that night on the phone, and I said, "You're leaving," and she said, "What do you mean I'm leaving?" I said, "You're leaving." She says, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, no, you're leaving. I don't know where, but you're leaving. And she had started this yoga certification. She's actually an art. She's a therapist, a certified art therapist. And well, she's a certified therapist, and then she actually has a specialty in art therapy. And she had a very troubled youth and a very neglectful childhood. Her mother was an alcoholic. So she had a lot of abuse, a lot of neglect and things like that. And so this is what she's doing for her living. And I'm just, it's very inspiring. So she said, I don't even know what you're talking about. She goes, I've got a business here. And, she was also doing at the time teletherapy because of COVID, she was no longer able to go to her office. And so this is what she was doing. Well, then she started this yoga certification to kind of include in her modalities. And about 3 weeks into it, she said, I just got the message that I'm leaving. And I don't even know where I'm going, but I'm leaving. Well, fast forward, she ends up moving to, of all places, New Mexico. And that's a whole story in of itself. Maybe that's a whole nother show, because that's just a mind-blowing experience with how that whole thing
Or maybe
happened.
we can get both y'all on here.
Well, that would be an interesting thing. Yeah, that would be interesting. So I started, so what happened was, in the midst of all of this stuff that was going on in her life, she also found out that an uncle of hers had just passed away. And her son, her youngest of two, was going off to college. And without getting into all the details and the weeds on that, there were just some emotional things that were going on for her. And it was just overwhelming, along with the fact that then she came to terms with the fact that she was definitely moving, and she had not yet informed me of that. So she kind of just went inside of her shell and just kind of just withdrew. And I lost contact with her for about 24 days.
Wow.
Exactly. She did reach back out to me through text messages and so on and so forth. But as far as the actual communication, by phone and that type of thing, vibrationally through voices, that disappeared. And I was actually on the phone on one morning with my dad driving down the road, and he was aware of some of this. And I said, she's going to call today. And he says, how do you know that? I said, because she's going to call. And I got off the phone, and I kid you not, there was a voicemail. It was from her. First time we had spoken by phone for 24 days. So these things keep showing up, these non-verbal ranges of energy. There was also one earlier before her disappearance that took place where I was doing Ho'oponopono. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Okay, so I was doing Ho'oponopono because she was doing her certification, and I was kind of feeling this degree of selfishness that was going on. And so what I decided to do was, in my chair that night, I thought, I'm going to do Ho'oponopono, because if my energy is going out to her, I don't want her to feel like, that I'm kind of stifling her. I want to support her through her journey. And I just don't want this energy to kind of leave me and for her to feel it, because I know that she feels energy. And so the next day, unexpectedly, she called me. And she said, I just needed to talk to you. And I said, well, what's going on? I said, I didn't expect to hear from you till the weekend because you're so busy. And she said, I know, but she says, it was like you were in the room with me last night. And I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, it was like you were sitting right next to me. I could feel you. And I said, wow. I said, it's really crazy. I said, well, what time was that? And I said, well, hold on a second. Don't tell me what time it was. Just think about what time it was. And then when you get to that place, I said, what I want you to do is tell me when you know. And I said that on 3, we're going to text that time to each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we did. And 1, 2, 3, and it was 9:00. And it was exactly when I did that. And so there was another exchange of energy. And this has just happened over and over again. Well, these energies are intensifying as time goes on. And then all of a sudden I lose contact with her.
Now, let me just stop you just for 1 second. Quick question.
Yes.
So is this during the period before you actually physically met?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I want. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then I am on a trip in 2020 before Soulogy Fest. And a good friend of mine, actually, who's a good friend of mine now that I coached years ago, he was 16 when I first met him, and I was his mentor. And he was going on this thing called Man Journey. And he basically was taking 2 people that he mentored, and he wanted me to be the third leg of his mentoring journey on the Route 66 tour on his motorcycle from Chicago to Santa Monica Pier.
So he asked,
yeah, it was a great experience. I got video, and it was really cool.
Were you on a bike too?
No, I was actually in a pickup truck with a trailer, because I was the support vehicle that just in case anything happened, I was there to help him. And, we're very, very dear friends, and we've become very close friends even more. He's one of my best friends. So we, on this journey, went through a little town in Arizona called Oatman, Arizona. And as we're traveling through Oatman, which is a town where actually donkeys live in the hillside, and these donkeys actually come and inhabit the town. It's really the coolest thing. So I drive into town, and there's donkeys everywhere. There's mother donkeys and baby donkeys, and it's just
This sounds like something out of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
it's
No.
crazy.
Or
Yeah,
the chickens on Kauai when we went to Kauai.
yeah, it's yeah, and they've got chickens like that down in the Florida Keys too. They're just everywhere.
Hmm.
But there's these donkeys, and they're like literally walking down the same sidewalks and the same streets, and even on the storefronts as human beings. And there's droppings in the street, and so this is just the coolest thing.
Is that Area 51?
No, 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 no. This is northwestern Arizona. This is not
Okay.
far from California.
Okay. Okay.
And so so my buddy stopped, and he went into the general store. I went into the general store. I came back out, and all of a sudden, I've got all this on video. This is the craziest thing. All of a sudden, there's all these donkeys, but off in the distance, there's this one white donkey, and this white donkey literally just starts walking right toward my vehicle, and I immediately put on my thing because I was there to kind of capture all the moments. And I was the videographer too. And so this donkey comes up, right beelines it. There's every kinds of people around, and it comes right to me, right to my door. And this donkey, like, it looks into me, and it's all of a sudden I felt like it was looking into my soul. It's the craziest thing. I never had that experience with another animal before. And I just felt something, and then this donkey just puts its head right on my door. And it's a beautiful, beautiful donkey. And I start petting it, and it's just like there's no intimidation. It's just the most amazing thing. So the donkey starts to walk away. My buddy comes out on his motorcycle. I need to follow him. And the donkey kind of starts to walk away. And a lady comes running up to the truck, and she says, "Oh my goodness, that's just the most amazing thing." And it kind of completely caught me off guard. And I said, "Well, I don't know what you mean." She says, "I live in the town." And she says, she lost a baby not long ago to a mountain lion, and she completely retreated. And she wanted nothing to do with people. And all of a sudden today, she decides to pop out. And not only that, she comes walking right for you. And she puts her head right inside the door. And she said, "This donkey," she said, "she's special." And she said she's known for healing and really connecting with human beings in a way that, none of our other donkeys do. And she's like, and she made a beeline just for you. And she says, "This is really powerful. And I just wanted you to know that." She goes, and I said, "Okay, well, that's fine." I said, "Well, I'm following my friend," and told her the story. So I get ready to pull out. She walks away, and the donkey comes from the side and stands right in front of the truck, as if to say, "You're not leaving. I'm not done with you." The donkey then comes back up to the truck again, puts its head inside the window, and literally lays its head on the window and takes this big, deep sigh of breath and just breathes out. And this is just kind of like, okay, this is different. The lady now walks up to me with the donkey there, and she starts petting the donkey, and she said, "What is it, Cece?" And I said, "Excuse me, what did you say?" And she said, "Cece, that's her name." And I said, "Oh, wow, that's really crazy. You just said that." And she said, "Well," she said, "I think that she senses something in you, like loss or hurt or pain or something, maybe somebody you've lost recently, maybe a relative or something." She says, "But I think it's more romantic. It's a romantic ache inside your heart. I can feel it because I also read energies." And I said, "Did you say Cece?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "Well, that was my girlfriend's nickname."
Dude, I mean,
Yeah.
we don't even need to go to Agartha or Telos. So we can go to this donkey town in northwest New Mexico. I mean, just the fact, I have a lot of encounters with animals, or a significant number anyway over the last 10 years. And there's something about white animals,
Yes.
period. So I've noticed that in my life, and I've read about that too. But you had a white donkey come
Yes.
off of a mountain,
Mhm.
walk through a bunch of people directly to you, and lay its head on you.
On 2 occasions.
I mean,
And then, and then
that's.
and then come to find out that before I leave, I find out that this donkey's nickname is Cece.
Do you think that part of the reason that your departure was delayed was for your protection?
No, I felt it. I don't really think so. I mean, I saw no indication of that on the road. What I did feel was a very strong sense that at that moment in time, part of my journey out west was I really felt like I needed to reconnect with myself. And I felt like since the departure of the situation with Christina stepping out of my life, I felt like, this was an opportunity for me. I almost canceled the trip, but I felt a very strong pull to go.
Yeah.
And at that moment in time, I realized this was some kind of a connection to bring us back together again.
So let me ask you this: other than the coincidence of the name, do you feel, maybe this is where you're headed with it, but do you feel that CC Christina was somehow or another, um, projecting or somehow or another involved with the physicality of CC the white donkey?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Because that's been confirmed this past June with Christina. It was
Okay,
all
tell us
confirmed.
about that. Well, see, I'm listening to
Yeah,
you.
so I'm leading up to the place where to
Yeah.
get you.
Okay.
So the next thing is that I go on this journey and out west, and I finally get to Santa Monica. I
Mm,
hop on a plane on October the 31st,
mm,
Halloween, to fly back east. It turns out that not only I confirmed this whole story of this connection on this, with Christina, but on the 31st, um, I actually was flying across, and it turns out that's the day that she's flying east
mm.
or driving west. I'm flying east. She's driving
So
west. Okay.
you're literally crossing over each other.
Right. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I this is something I've ever experienced in my life before. Nothing like this. But from that moment in time, I felt I felt this connection, which eventually came back. But it goes so much further than that. In that I work with Ty Hudnall, which you know
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
And I mean, my experience working with Ty, which is who I actually ran into, this is where it's all going to tie in right now. So I made it my intention to come out to Arizona, and I was actually lined up to work with a company in Arizona. I think it was called it was Sedona something, Soul Adventures or something like that. It was a company that links you with practitioners, therapists, and whatnot. Because I was on a healing journey. I wanted to go out and I wanted to heal. I knew I had a lot of deep wounds inside of myself that I needed to work on. And it had nothing to do with this relationship as much as it was a lot of other things, a divorce and other things. So I made it my intention that I was going to go out. At the last minute, I decided to change companies because they weren't getting back to me. And I went with another company called Sedona Self Love. And it was that company that ultimately I was able to link up with people like Ty, another guy by the name of Bear, Cynthia, Rhea, Wade, a wonderful group of people that were all on all different types of energetic levels. And it was just before I left Sedona in April, when I was out there the first time and I met Ty, that I went ahead and had a conversation with him. And I said, I really want to stop in and just see you and thank you for, being here and walking into my life for me. I said, but what I really want to do is, I want to make it my intention to come back. And he had mentioned something about a festival. Well, maybe you ought to come back for the festival. Well, I never really put two and two together until after I got back and he and I did a couple sessions together. And I said, hey, by the way, this thing about a festival, I said, I started following you. I reached out, I was on Facebook and something popped up and I started following you. I started following you before I even knew about Soulogy Fest.
Oh, so you didn't know it was the Soulogy Fest?
I
You
had no
just
idea.
mm,
So then I'm also talking to Ty, and then I finally go, wait a minute. I put one and one together, and I said, so Soulogy Fest is it? I said, well, I'm following Todd, on Facebook. And so all of this stuff is because I'm seeking,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and it's not something it's coming to me because I'm basically reaching out for it. So that's how I came to know Soulogy Fest.
So yeah. So I mean, I just got it what you're saying, because like first you were talking about these telepathic occurrences, and
Yes.
like we just had one like a week ago, and she had gotten she was communicating with her higher self the night before, and her higher self says, if the internet went out, where would y'all meet? So she calls me the next day and tells me, and before she, like you did, before she says it, she goes, what would you think? And I told her, and it was the same place. So like I hadn't thought about that becoming a more frequent occurrence. It would only make sense as more and more of the people are expanding. But now I also see in your story, and I remember a little bit more about when I met you, how you were having these, these synchronicities that were just basically peppering the way for you to know where to go, or basically, something like that. So I get what you're saying, but though I didn't know about the white donkey thing. You
Yeah.
didn't talk about that at the Soulogy Fest.
Well, yeah. So it gets stranger for those people who aren't really believing in these types of things. Well, you can believe what you want, but I know what I experienced. And so at Soulogy Fest, you asked me to get up and speak, and I spoke on something totally different. I never spoke about any of this. Okay. I basically spoke about my experience being a coach and said I'm relatively new to all this stuff with the energies and UFOs and everything, and it was pretty crazy, that some of these things that I was being exposed to, and about how geometry actually has something to do with music and all these different speakers that you had. It was just phenomenal. And Franco, and I mean, had some opportunities to actually interact with him. What a beautiful soul he was, and how he was always available for everybody. It was just beautiful. And so this experience for me was just really powerful. And one of my missions, I met with Ty before Soulogy Fest started, and one of the challenges he gave me was to be open and available.
Yeah.
And so prior to going to Soulogy Fest, I didn't know what that meant, but I went ahead and said, well, I'm just going to stay open and available. And the first night after Soulogy Fest, we were sitting over there on the gentleman who was the host of the place out there.
Shams.
Shams. What a great guy. What a neat person. And we're all sitting on couches, and this person comes up and sits down, and she's handing out her business cards and explains that she is a does QHHT. And so I just kind of, she's about my daughter's age, so I kind of didn't think twice about it. And I'm driving home that night back to my condo, and I actually was torn between getting a condo and getting Christy, who was part of the setting everything up, had reached out and said, that she had a friend of hers who has a house and a room available. I think it was down in Cottonwood. So I was torn between that and a condo, which was more expensive, but something just kept telling me get the 2-bedroom condo. I just needed 1 bedroom. Well, after I met this person, I go home and this person is just on my mind. And it's not like a male to female thing. It was a energetic thing. And I said to myself, I don't know what this is about, but in the end, it was kind of like, I really felt this nudging that I needed to speak to her all the way till I went to bed. The next morning I got up, and that was when I met Tom, who was just on with you. Mm-hmm. Tom and Ann, I met them on the way over at a little pastry place. Got to meet them, was running a little bit late out there. When I got out there on the way, it literally almost like a verbal voice said, you got to find this girl and talk to her. I didn't know what that meant. So literally, I think some people were speaking. You had some speakers, and as soon as they were just about ready to finish speaking, this girl comes walking up, and she's sitting off to the side like she's waiting to speak to them. And so as soon as it was over, I went up and spoke with her, and I said, I don't know why I'm supposed to come talk to you. I said, but I met you last night, and I said, but here I am talking to you. So we just kind of shared some pleasantries and went back and forth about a few things. And, the next thing I know, we're sharing stories, and, she really has some questions for me. Well, it's time to break for lunch. So we go over and we take lunch. And then some of the people were there helping out, the women that were, there at Soulogy Fest that were helping with, lunch and everything, said, I've got somebody who needs to get into town and take their child or pick up their child and bring, who needs a ride for something. I had no idea what it was. And I heard it. And my first thought was, ignore it, but the next thing I know is like this voice keeps ringing in my head. And I said, I'll do it. I had no idea who it was or what it was for, but I said, I'll do it. Because I remember Ty, the voice in my head said, be available.
Yeah.
This is leading somewhere, I promise.
No, I'm with you.
So I get in my car and I take this person, and prior to getting in the car, I find out who the person is. It's the same person that
Are we talking about Amanda?
Melanie.
Melanie. Okay. Okay.
Did you know Melanie?
No, I mean, I probably do, but I can't without seeing
Okay.
her face. There's no way.
So I met her, and next thing I know, this is the person I'm going to go help out. Well, it turns out there's a situation that's kind of in distress where there's something that's happening that she needs to get out of a bad situation with somebody she was staying
So
with.
there's the condo with the 2 bedrooms.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. So
And she,
I mean, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm
yeah. So
sorry.
she had a son, and so on our way there, I said, and she was upset because she said, "Well, here's my problem. The person I came here with, my keys are in their car, and I can't get to that, but I can get in. I think I can get into the house to get some of my stuff out." I said, well, "Let's just get the basic stuff because you're in a very vulnerable situation." I said, "Let me do what I can," and eventually, I'd let her and her son come back to the condo, and so we shared a lot of pleasantries back and forth. And I said, I really want to get out and be a tourist, and I want to go to this little town called Jerome. There's a mine down there,
Mm-hmm.
and some other things. And I said, I just kind of want to feel like get out and just breathe a little bit. So she said, "Yeah, let's go." So we did. And on the way back, she kept saying, I want to find a place to stop. And she goes, "I want to do a thing for you," because she does QHHT.
Hmm.
So I knew of this river, which turns out it's the Oak Creek River. And I said, I actually went and did a healing ceremony, not a healing, a ceremony there for yoga and meditation. I said, I think I could find it. Well, anyways, we found it. And it was at that river that I did a healing ceremony with her. And it was the coolest thing because I was sitting there and she asked me to open up my hand, but my eyes were closed and I was meditating, and I felt something go inside my hand. I wrote completely extensively about this. And whatever went in my hand, I could feel like my whole hand went down. It was like heavy. It was dense. And then she asked me to close my hand around it, and it felt about like a golf ball. And so anyways, I'm kind of blown away by this because I don't know what it is. And then she said at one point, "Get up and release it to the river." Now, I had this pain in my shoulder that Ty talked me about. It was because I wasn't releasing. I was holding on to things.
Mm-hmm.
I had this extreme pain in my shoulder. She never touched my body. But when this ceremony was over, that pain was gone and has never come back since.
So, I mean, what you're describing, because this occurred, the donkey, the cross country trip. I mean, obviously the things that led up to it, but this consistency of these things happening. I didn't realize that you were on that type of surge when you got to the Soulogy Fest. You didn't
Right.
talk about, but I mean, has this continued? Is this continuing? Is it becoming more frequent? What other kind
Yes.
of experiences, or whatever you want to talk about in regard to?
So what happens at the river is really powerful. I finally let go of what's in my hand. And at that moment, I realized it's a piece of corn. But yet it felt like a golf ball, and it felt like lead, like the size of a golf ball with lead. It was that heavy, and it was all that density, all that stuff I was carrying in that shoulder. And she basically said I was holding on to grief, I was holding on to sorrow, I was holding on to all that stuff, and it was released. It was something that I can't say that I believed it, but I believed it when it was done. Okay. And I felt that instant release of all that stuff. So a few days pass by. She packs up and she heads back to, of all places, she's from New Mexico.
Is she from the Donkey Town?
No, this is Arizona, but now this is New Mexico,
the
same town that Christina moves to. The same.
So
same
she's from the same
state.
town that Christina ends up moving to.
State. So right. So she's in Albuquerque, which is the capital of New Mexico.
Okay.
And her son left 3 things in my car: a pair of shoes, a pillow, and a toy. And I said, "Hey, I'm traveling east. Do you want me to drop those things off?" And she said, "Yes." So I made plans to stop in New Mexico in Albuquerque and drop those things off. She said, "Hey, I'm making a smoothie. Do you want one?" I said, "Sure." And while we're sitting there drinking the smoothie, she says, "I'm going out with some friends tonight, some friends who are well-known scientists and they're really known within the UFO community." She goes, "We're going to look at UFOs and have pizza under the stars around the fire pit." She goes, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Well, I really need to get going." I said, "I probably need to head east." And she says, No, I really, think that you really could benefit from this. And she says, "But I don't want to pressure you into it." And I said, "Let me think about it." So after I got done drinking my smoothie, I said, "You know what? I'll go ahead and go." So we go, we're under the stars, and I'm going to backpedal just a little bit. Back at Soulogy Fest, when it was over, I met with Ty one time before leaving town. He's always my last stop.
Right.
So this is now June. And when I met with Ty, one of his friends was in there, Steve. I don't know if you ever met Steve
I
or
know
not.
Steve. Yeah, Steve's he's an ET from off University. No, he's cool.
So Steve told me he did some pendulum work and stuff, and he also told me, he said, she's not in Albuquerque, meaning Christina. He said it's more like Santa Fe, but it's definitely not Albuquerque. I know that for sure. And he says, I don't know what the number is, but it's either 620 or 260. And I don't think it's an address, but and I put it in my phone. This was in June.
Right.
So I put the number, basically into that. So now I'm out with Melanie. We go under the stars. I saw UFOs for the first time in my life, by the way.
Wow.
And it was really cool because these people were experts and they could tell you exactly what to look for. And we saw it. There was even cloud embankments that came rolling in to kind of like hide those things from, to cloak them and different things. And, it was really the coolest thing. And we're getting ready to leave and they're actually signing, autographing their books to us that they gave us, And I'm going out to the car to take something out there that she had brought over with her. And I have 2 missed calls. And then as I'm looking at my missed calls from Christina, one is from her regular phone, one's from her business line, and then an email pops up. Boom, boom, boom. I pick up the phone and I call her back. And she answers the phone. Now, mind you, we haven't talked now since the year before, back in September.
So, okay. So let me just make sure, because I got lost there. So because there was that 24-day period where you didn't actually have a conversation.
Right.
And then sometime after that, you kind of split for good or something.
Well, right? There was no splitting. It was just a matter of just energetically, she had to focus on what she had to focus on.
Oh, I see. Okay.
She let me know very clearly that, that eventually.
So now you're down there in New Mexico and you get over there by this, the connection with Melanie.
Right.
And you come out and so what happens? You're having a conversation with her now after a year.
Yes, I'm having a conversation and she said, where are you? Are you in Arizona? Because I did keep in contact with her and she would reach back out to me in text message form and whatnot, but no phone calls and no face-to-face.
Right.
So she reaches out. We're having this conversation. Are you in Arizona? Because I know you were there recently. Or are you in Georgia? And I said, I'm in neither place. Where are you? I said, well, I'm in this I'm in this town north of Albuquerque in New Mexico. She says, no way. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, what's the name of the town? I said, it's Rio Rancho. And she says, no way. That's where I live.
So I just got to say, I have to ask this question. Are y'all still together? Are you, I mean, this is a lot of obviously you're supposed to be connected in some way, whether it's romantic or not. But I mean,
there is a connection. Yes, there is a connection. And that's what complicates it. And I hope that the people that are listening don't think that this is just a personal montage. This is something that is beyond the realm of what I can really grasp, to be honest with you. And I know
so the information is not about the story, but it's in the story. That's what
it's in the story.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going. This is fascinating.
So we talk for over 2 hours on the phone. We share pleasantries. There was never a separation as far as I'm out, I'm done, we're done, whatever. It was merely a lot of trauma and a lot of things. It turns out that as soon as she got to Arizona, as soon as she got to New Mexico for this new job, it didn't exist. Like they closed the doors, they locked the doors. So now she's got to go back to doing teletherapy. So now she starts this whole process all over again, doing the things that she didn't want to do. She wanted just to go to work for somebody and didn't want to have to do all the billings and all the types of stuff that you have to do when you own your own company. And she was exhausted because she was working so many hours and she knew she could never be in a relationship in this kind of a condition. So I go back to my hotel and we're planning to meet. And she said, I can't meet tomorrow. She said, are you staying in town or what are you doing? I said, well, I was traveling through. I said, but I'll stay. So we made plans to get together on Sunday, which we did. And when I went back and looked at my phone, I realized that it was exactly 260 days since we actually saw each other until the time she actually called me on the phone. Yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
It was, yeah.
Now,
And
have these, or to go wherever you want to with the story, but have these things continued to happen to you?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Are
they
you?
happen all the time.
I mean, obviously, it involves other people. Are you? I mean, and I totally get what you're saying. I mean, I can look at my own life and certainly people I've come into contact with. But are you seeing this happening more prevalently, not just with yourself, but with others?
Yes, from an energetic level, as Ty teaches, is to living from the heart and living from care. And you probably know a little bit of something about the pain bodies and the light bodies and all that, with the Toltecs. And I realized at one point in my life I was just living in the pain bodies exclusively. But and this is what takes discipline, and it's the thing is, it's not knowledge, it's experience.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is really experiential. What you experience on a daily basis, even with you and Morgan, it's very experiential. Um, and that's the thing, that's the rub. Being a therapist, she's been trained clinically, academically,
Right.
and through the mind. And this is where the story is. This is where the story is. This is where the dialogue is. This is where this is the battlefield, is in the mind. And in the heart and soul, there's no battle. It's the knowing, it's the believing. And so I say this for everything. But this is helping along the lines with many of my different relationships. But I am seeing an awareness in the entire world around us where people are waking up, and you see this connection. This special connection that I have with her, what makes it so unique is that, as I understand it, as it's been explained to me, these energies are shifting. And Ty has informed me that from the 19th of December until the 30th of January, that this is the time of reflection.
Yeah.
For people who are in deep relationships with people, especially on a spiritual, etheric level. And this is a time for reflection to determine, as we're going from the 3-dimensional into the 5-dimensional, what we're doing on all these different levels. And I think that's the rub, is that there's the old paradigm, and then there's the new way.
That's a really good point. I mean, and maybe this is why reading books and even watching videos, I think the average video, and this is a couple of years old, but the average video you watch online, worldwide, the average is like, it's less than 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe this is what you're saying is, or what I'm picking up is, the wisdom comes moment by moment in the moment. Like the book is life. The book is in the experience. You're reading the pages as you're walking through life versus out there, or less, or more than reading the books and all the things that we did with a lot more frequency, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
It's all
But that,
experience at this point.
yeah, yeah.
Right, because it all emanates from the soul, as you say, soul speaks,
Yeah.
and it is all about the inner work, because
Yeah.
the inner work doesn't take place in the mind. What takes place in the mind, of course, is the reprogramming and the
Yeah.
actual consciousness that takes place. But doing the work with Ty and doing the work with others has really taught me is that there is so much more to what's going on, and because people have awakened along with myself. And I think I've been on this awakening journey probably for about 20 years, but the real essence of it was the last time we had a conversation right before Christmas. So that's been very recently. And with the intention to get together, is I was at one point when we first met, I felt like I was the one that was trailing as far as on that energetic level. And she said, I just cannot believe where you've come, not just since you and I first met, but where you were when we met in June, and then where you are today. And she said, I have to tell you, I'm just really blown away. And we talked about that idea about the mental approach to things, the academic approach to things. And I think that's where, this is the matrix. And the matrix is all academic. The matrix is all either academic or emotional. And very little of it is very reflective. And so people are I don't know about you, but when you get around people that are in that matrix, I don't know about you, but it's very uncomfortable for me anymore.
It's becoming more and more uncomfortable. And I think there's two things that I'm picking up. One, it's you're right. There's like a matrix within the matrix. Let's just say in the matrix, it's in the matrix that was constructed within the matrix is as you describe, and so I kind of see it like that. And so it's like there's been some back and forth. We go back and forth. We go back and forth. You might walk into a room and it's straight 3D,
Hmm.
and metaphorically and literally, and then that's becoming uh, less doable. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And at the same time, there's like this flow, like you're experiencing, where you don't have to worry about it because you're going into situations in the real matrix. The organic, universal matrix. And then the other thing that you bring to mind for me is there's been some type of shift in inner work, or let's say the consciousness as a whole was like 90% inner work, in these circles or whatever however you want to put it. And it's like shifted, it's diminished, but not in a bad way, because that inner work has created this inner awareness,
Hmm.
right? So like the information's coming in moment by moment, and the adjustments can pretty much be made moment by moment, because there is a almost instant and immediate manifestation energetically at a minimum with everything that we're doing. It's becoming very fast now. Um, I mean,
Right.
if we go against our soul, we're going to know about it real quick.
Hmm.
And then if we, you know, kind of like come from that awareness, that inner awareness, because of the inner work we've done, there's some kind of threshold where I don't want to say untouchable, but virtually impenetrable, impervious. There's another element, and maybe it's just us with our higher self that's putting us in like situations versus going back and forth like a yo-yo.
Yeah. And I think that, coming from a place of, once again, in the dualities of life, there's care and there's concern.
Mm,
And a lot of times people would actually think of those two words and think that that's not much of a difference, but it's a huge difference,
absolutely.
because the concern is the pain body. And that's really, that is basically, it's not, it's the doing. And as Ty has taught me many times, and one of your first questions was, you're a football coach, you're a coach, and what do coaches teach all the time? Give your best effort. Effort equals outcome. That's not always the way it is in this realm.
Yeah.
In the 3D world, that's all that it is, because
Yeah.
it's the game. But so even when translating that to relationships, it's not the effort that we put forth; it's the surrender.
Yeah.
It's the allowing.
Yeah.
It's the allowing ourselves to be in a place where we are free and free ourselves. We cannot give anything away. If we give it away, there's nothing left.
Hmm.
But what we can do is we can share. It's the shareability that Ty teaches all the
Yeah.
time, and it's the shareability. And when I operate from a place of care versus concern, and when I operate from a place of shareability, it's amazing how it literally translates itself, and literally things come forward in a very beautiful way,
Yeah.
because it's our most authentic self that's showing up, and the universe cannot help but attach itself to that type of
Yeah.
energy. And so more and
It's
more, it is an absolute discipline to learn this.
Yeah, it's the real virus.
Hmm.
It's the real. It really is, and Ty's going to be on with Serena, which will be
Mm,
interesting in 2 days, and he's been coming on every few weeks, and we're
I know.
working on some collaborations. Everyone knows how I feel about the Wizard.
Yeah,
You
let me tell you
obviously.
something. He's the real deal. I mean, I've been
I
around him.
know he is. He's absolutely the real deal.
There
There's
is
no
just
question.
a
But
gift.
like I don't know. I love the way, because I've heard him talk in the same way.
Hmm.
I've been around him quite a bit, and this thing about concern versus care, it's a very easy thing to understand. And then what he talks about in terms of when you get an actual, what people call a download or whatever you want to call it, or an epiphany. You know what it is because it's immediately shareable. And in my
Hmm.
mind, it's like it's that invisible part. You don't even have to try to, because it bounces off of you. It's code. It's knowledge.
Mhm.
It's like you're a light that just went up whatever number of
Right.
watts, and it just shines out there.
So speaking of Ty in the river, at that river, I also asked her to surrender with me. And I basically said, I don't know where this is going. And this is no longer about you and me and us. This is about our individual journeys. And this is about just knowing that you're okay. And that, that you're going to be okay. And that we might've just been brought together just to point ourselves in different directions. Because the last time I spoke with her, I said, she asked, well, let me back up to the thing about the river. So at the river, when I finally explained all this to Ty about what happened, and he said, do you realize that what you experienced when you actually met face to face with her, and including the phone call, that was only about 3% of the actual energy?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask
Yeah.
you this,
Yeah.
because I don't want to run out of time. So I'm gonna let me just get through this, because I want to be very clear. So there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about and reality of a divine union, what I would call a divine union frequency, or some people will call it a twin flame frequency. That it's typically described as two people coming together as one, creating a third energy, so on. The Trinity in physicality, right? Um, some of the stories I've heard and experiences I've come across do not follow traditional or stereotypical attributes, such as you got to live, just the basic relationship. He does this, she does that. To include uh, people I know that I absolutely believe and respect and love, that their partner is not even incarnated. Okay, to drop-ins, to all kinds of stuff. But my question to you: would you say that your connection, that 97% mostly, right? That 97% he's talking about, and the 3% too, is of a frequency that, whether it's romantic or not, that's not even like a question about it or something. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but would you say that it's a frequency that might be described as a divine union frequency, or how would you describe it?
It's a frequency I've never experienced.
Mm.
It's an experience that has no words. It has no explanation.
Mm-hmm.
It's experiential, and that's it. And it's
Did
powerful.
you
Yes.
did you experience a higher heart expansion?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And explaining all of this is the first time I've actually gotten through it without any kind of emotion whatsoever, because I will tell you the emotion is very powerful.
Yeah. I can feel it from you. I can feel it from
But I
you.
wanted this to be a moment that I could share.
Well,
Would
what's
be a
what's
teachable moment.
brilliant what's brilliant is, I mean, we obviously have a third energy, Morgan and I, and Soulogy is a big part of that. And it's crazy, because she'll get a transmission, we need to put couples on. This was in November. It's happened with other themes or other frequencies before. Like, her higher self says, the couples need to talk about what's going on.
Mhm.
And so what has happened over the years is, it's almost like people get sent a bunch of dates. Everybody turns in everything, and then when you look at the calendar, it follows the energy. There's a certain pattern to it.
Mhm.
So here we are booking all these couples, and now we're starting to, because we're kind of inundated, but putting in shows with individuals and mixing it up. But the theme has been discussion around divine union frequency, and here you come on without a traditional partner, by typical or stereotypical terms, and yet you're conveying to us not only what seems to be one and the same with the topics or the themes or the frequencies that we've been having on the show, but also an expansion of it,
Yeah.
which is quite fascinating to me.
Yeah. And even though that person is not here in bodily form, spiritually, there is a
Yeah.
union.
Yeah.
She's aware of that. Our experience in June was so powerful for her; it terrified her. 5 days after our connection, it was over, and it was back to nothing. And then all of a sudden, as I was doing the inner work, she starts reaching back out, starts reaching out, phone calls, text messages, everything like that. I just kind of stayed on a course of self-discovery and finally reached back out. And then a phone call came through, and it was almost 3 hours. And that 3 hours confirmed a lot of stuff,
Well, when you take out the linear part, linear time,
right.
that in itself changes everything. Like I'm really in a really good place now. No worries about ever, coming together in the physical with Morgan. Like there's a part of me that just knows. And the only thing that can, interrupt that, that equilibrium would be the pressure of time. And it's just not there anymore. And
Right.
that can't just be me and her. That has to be something that's affecting not just couples, but people everywhere.
No,
So,
that's what's happening. Yeah, that's exactly. In fact, I probably meet with Ty once every 10 days.
yeah.
And that's the last couple sessions, we don't even collapse energies, programs, fields.
Yeah.
It's just about growth.
Ty is the shift dizzle, man. He's the shift dizzle.
Yeah.
He's the wizard.
So yeah, and there actually is more to this story, that there was an experience that took place, then we actually got together, but we may not have time for it, maybe for another show.
Well, we can do, because we're going to have to sign off, because we had a little scheduler. We thought we were going to do 3 shows today. We ended up doing 5. We had a little mix up.
Yes.
But so I'll reach out to you. And
yes.
So I'll just reach out to you, and because I had no idea we were going this direction. This is fascinating. And we'll do it again. But I'll reach out to you for that and otherwise. So I just want to say, man, it's been a great session with you. Like, it's just like very uplifting, very activating, very affirming. And I think this is the importance of this program, is hearing people's stories. And I saw comments, hey, that happened to me. At the very beginning, I totally get what you're saying. So I think that's a big part of. It's obviously we can't all have a donkey come down from a mountain and pick us out of a crowd. So you take care, brother.
Yeah, man. Peace out.
We'll be back in 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to be running late on the next one. Okay.
You bet, man. It was great.
Take care, Jim. All right.